On today's episode, we're going to talk to a homeowner in Florida. He converted his garage to an ADU. Hey, Stephen. We're with Stephen LaChance, and he's a homeowner out in Panama City, Florida. And he's actually built an ADU. So we're going to interview him and hear all about his project. But I'm really interested in your ADU journey. When you reached out and said that you had actually built an ADU on your property, I immediately wanted to get you on the phone and hear all about it. So thank you. Before we got on the phone, I looked up kind of the average home cost, and of course, in your area, 3, 4, 500,000. It's not uncommon, for an average home. And then I was curious to see if I was in that market and wanted to buy a 1 bedroom, what it would cost. And I found one that's on the market for 150,000. And then, of course, curious as I am, I wanted to know what the mortgage on that would be, and it came out to about 1,400 per month on a mortgage for about a 550 square foot home. Give us a little background of the journey. What made you want to build an ADU?
Well, we moved here a couple years ago from Arizona. The house that we bought was a little bit on the small side. It was a lot smaller than the one we had in Arizona. My wife needed a home office, so that took one of the bedrooms. The house is 3 bedroom, and we wanted to have one guest bedroom. So really, we needed a space we wanted to have a space for our son. We had initially discussed that we were going to try to put a pool house in the back, build a pool and put a pool house there, and he could live out there. The city shot us down. They didn't want that. They thought we were going to start some Airbnb. Then I started looking at an addition to the house, and I started getting quotes from a few places, and they were just too outrageous. And those quotes were probably 150 to $200,000 for basically a small bedroom, a small living room, a small efficiency kitchen, and a one-car garage. 600 square feet, yeah, for $200,000.
That's a lot.
My wife she happened to see something on Pinterest where people were taking a 2-car garage, and turning it into a small apartment. As soon as I saw that, I was like, okay, let's try that, and it worked out.
That's awesome. So you've got a 2-car garage. Is that about like 20 by 20, kind of the common 400 square foot?
Yeah.
Did you know much about ADUs before you started, or was this kind of a learning curve?
I knew nothing about ADUs. Probably the only advantage that I had was that I've been an electrician all my life.
Mhm.
I started in electrical trade when I was 18. So I've been in and around construction for a long time. So I felt like I had some advantage at that point.
So do you know if ADUs are becoming popular in your area? Do you see your neighbors working on these projects yet, or how's it in Florida? How's it in that area?
Well, most of the houses, this neighborhood is pretty established. I don't really see a lot of ADUs around us, near us.
I want to hear more about your garage conversion because you did need a permit for it.
Yeah, there's no way I would try to build something like that without a permit around here. It's 35 feet from the street, and everybody driving back past is going to see it. And the contractor that I used, I had talked to several contractors, and some of them they didn't want to even touch an ADU.
Okay.
And the one guy was around 70,000. And then I found this other guy. He wasn't a general contractor, but he was trying to get into being a general contractor. And basically I took a chance on him. He quoted me a price of 38,000. And the only thing was that he had given me a list of materials that he wanted me to purchase,
Okay.
which probably helped me out because there was no markup on those items. He did provide all the labor for the install, the additional material that I bought, and it was a lot. It was kitchen cabinets, countertops, the flooring, the tile for the walk-in shower. I wanted a glass door for the shower, so I paid for that too.
Mhm.
But we put in about 20,000. Looking at the numbers afterward, I think we saved at least 10,000 by
Yeah.
me doing doing all that.
Doing the attached ADU. The city turned that down. They were okay with the garage conversion, though. There wasn't an issue or anything like that.
None,
Okay.
none.
Okay. And no issues with the HOA saying you can't use that space for living. You have to have it for car parking.
We don't have HOA in this
Okay.
neighborhood.
From start to finish, do you remember about how long the entire project took?
I think it was around 3 months
Okay.
from start to finish.
Okay.
One of the things that was there was actually two things that were kind of a surprise for me.
Okay.
The first one was that they had this stipulation that the floor, the floor height of your house has to be 12 inches higher than the crown of the street. Basically, what I had to do was raise up the floor in the garage to match what was in the house. And that was about 8 inches. I considered framing it out with, 2x8s and then plywood on top. And my wife was like, no way. So that was one of the things that the contractor did. He poured
Yeah.
another 8 inches of concrete in there.
To meet that requirement. That's a lot of concrete.
It was, I think, 6 yards.
So your son's living there now, and if he ever moves out, what do you think you could rent it for?
All of the utilities in there, we pay for.
Okay.
They're not separated. I'm going to guess probably I would think 1,000,
Hmm.
maybe even 12 with the utilities being included.
And that would probably be right under what if I was to go out and just get an apartment or condo or townhouse, I'd still be at the 14 mark, right? I'd
Yeah.
still be, and then I have to pay my own utilities there. So renting it at 1,200 with utilities included, that would be, I guess, helpful to someone who's on more limited income. So that's a plus. And do you have any idea if your property value or the value of your house has gone up, or have you even looked into that?
We haven't explored that yet. Um, I'm sure something is going to show up on my tax bill. We've done other improvements on the property too. Like I said, we did put in a pool, and when I put a small metal building, my wife calls it the man cave, but adding the two-car the building in the back and doing the ADU was way cheaper than putting an addition on the house.
Isn't that crazy? It's crazy and amazing. Homeowners, when they realize what they can do with their property, that's when the moment hits and they're like, wow, if you go to sell this property in the future, it could definitely be marketed just so many different ways, right? So if someone needs to house like one of their children, maybe an elderly parent, or if they want a rental, if I want to make income and offset some of the mortgage, your property offers a lot more opportunity than one of your neighbors. So to think that the value is not increased by how much would be the question, because I have no doubt, right, that it's increased because it's increased. Places like California, they're popping up, every street corner. Some people are seeing 30% increase in value. Doesn't necessarily mean somebody would pay that, but they may go take the equity out and do something with the money, or something of the sort. You may be shocked, depending on when you go to sell, just what somebody would be willing to pay for it, because it's a huge opportunity. You've probably created, I can imagine, this oasis of sorts in your backyard with storage and rental income. And I mean, I want to go down there and just and buy it, because I mean that's hard to find. So now that the project's over, would you do anything differently? And if so, what would that be?
I would try to get a contractor to do the thing turnkey. So I would definitely get somebody who who had all the licenses and could do the whole job.
So turnkey, what do you wish you would have known looking back before you started? Like, is there one thing that's like, man, I wish I'd have known that, or maybe I'd have done differently in the space, you know, would you have changed anything?
I don't think so. I mean, we did hit a couple of snags. One of them was that we found out as the project was going along that the walls were not insulated. So they had to tear all of the drywall off, insulate the walls, and then re-drywall. He charged me several $1,000s for that extra work, which I didn't have a problem with that. It did add about another week or two to the project. One of the things that I did, I wanted to get windows that were the same exact size as the rest of the house. I had to order those special, it took a while to get them. So if I had used the windows that I was going to use, they would have been down 6 inches above the floor because they were tall windows. So I had to run to Lowe's and buy some smaller windows because I also the front wall was where the kitchen counter went and where the bathroom was. Well, then the distance from the top of the counter to that header was maybe 30 inches. I had windows that were 60 inches tall.
That's definitely a lesson learned because, of course, special order windows, they're a lot more than regular windows. So if you were to say to someone thinking of building an ADU, doing something similar to what you did, what's that advice? What do they need to know? Give them some good words of wisdom.
Plan for some unexpected costs. That'd be the first thing I would do.
Yeah.
Probably 10 or even 20%
Mhm.
above what you think. The other thing that I would do, this really worked out for me just because I was the one that had to pull the permits, make friends with the building inspector. These guys, they weren't trying to give me a hard time. They wanted the structure to be correct. The guy that I hired, he didn't know certain things. He didn't use the hurricane ties. They tied all the framing together.
Okay.
He didn't have enough anchors in the concrete secure that wall to the floor. They saved my backside multiple times. Yeah, make friends with the inspector and treat them nice, and they're not your enemy. They're not here to make your life difficult. They're
Keep it safe because people are going to live in it, you know, whether it's your family or a tenant. Well, I love your story. I appreciate you taking some time out of your day just to share it with us and give us some insight. I know you sent me some great pictures and stuff like that that I'm interested to see what others think of the pictures that we're going to show them of your space. So any last final words?
you know, I think you can do anything you want if you set your mind to it. It was hard. It was hard. It worked out. I think we have a really nice space for our son. I think it really added a lot of value to the house. It made it so much more livable for us just getting him out there out of our hair.
That's right. Well, thank you so much for being here.
You bet. It was my pleasure.
Thank If you like what you're seeing, like and subscribe.